Well, good afternoon, morning, everybody. I guess it's still morning. Tonight, the opening of the U.S. Open tennis. And let us hope there's no rain. It's one of the great events. I don't know why I'm shilling for them, but actually, I think they say that the more people attend the tennis match than any other event, partially because it goes on for days. I don't know how they get those numbers, but it's a lot of people, and it's great for New York City, and it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to go. So we'll do that. Let me talk about why we're here today, and that is we are at the intersection just outside of W.E.B. DuBois Academic High School here in Brooklyn, where classes will begin in a couple of weeks. The students here and elsewhere in our city are going to have a much safer time traveling to and from school, and that is because starting September 9th, our administration will begin enforcing speed limits near schools with the use of speed cameras. Now, the Albany legislature authorized us to install 20 of them, and we're glad, we'd like to have more than that, but we're glad to start with what we have. And we do have the flexibility to move them to school zones throughout the city without disclosing where they will be, just as we do with red light cameras. So hopefully it will have a much bigger impact than just the impact on the 20 schools where they are. And we will move them around with regularity to make sure that it does, or that they do. This is a measure that our administration has long worked to bring about, and it was finally authorized by the state legislature and Governor Cuomo earlier this summer. And I did want to acknowledge the efforts of Senate Majority Coalition Leader Jeff Klein and Assembly Member Deborah Glick, who sponsored the legislation in their respective chambers, as well as thank Senate Majority Co-Leader Dean Skelos and Assembly Speaker Shelley Silver for so strongly supporting the bill. Now, all of the schools where we are placing fixed or mobile speed cameras are in areas where high crash rates and a high incidence of driver speeding. A child who is struck by a car traveling at 40 miles an hour faces a 70% chance of being killed, compared to that same child having an 80% chance of surviving if hit by a car traveling at only 30 miles an hour, the city's speed limit, unless otherwise posted. And so if we can get people to follow the city's speed limit, it really is going to make a big difference. Still have to watch your kids carefully. Kids still have to look both ways. We all do. But if the cars are going slower, they will do less damage if, God forbid, an accident occurs. And when students return to school in 2 weeks, our traffic enforcement officials will have a powerful new tool to stop speeding drivers from endangering our kids. Now, the evidence from cities that already use this technology tells us that introducing speed cameras helps reduce speeds and saves lives. In New Orleans, for example, speed cameras led to an 84% drop in speeding. And other research shows that speed cameras reduce injuries and fatalities by something like 40 or 45%. Our administration also has made big strides in improving traffic safety for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. New York City streets have never been safer than during the last 5 years. Thank you, Jeanette. And our traffic fatality rate is half that of other cities. Just think of that. We think of New York as having so much traffic and so much bustle and so much congestion. You'd think the rate would be higher here. But our streets are, in fact, have a fatality rate, as I said, less than half of other major cities. So, having said all that, speeding remains the single biggest contributor to fatal traffic accidents in the 5 boroughs, and speed cameras will be another important tool in our campaign to combat speeding. Other elements of that campaign include red light cameras, the NYPD's commitment to aggressive traffic safety enforcement, thank you, Chief, and our program of creating neighborhood slow zones where we cut the speed limit to 20 miles an hour and take other measures to reduce vehicle speeding. There are currently 11 such slow zones around the city, and we expect to complete 3 more by the end of this year. Now, none of this work would have been possible without the dedication of another number of outstanding public servants, and I'd like to invite 2 of them to share a few words on today's milestones. First, we'll hear from the woman who's leading our administration efforts to make New York's 6,300 miles of streets even safer, Commissioner Jeanette Sedekan. Commissioner?
Great. Thanks, Mayor Bloomberg. Just 5 blocks from where we stand today, we've observed drivers going 60 miles an hour. That's 30 miles an hour over the speed limit, and clearly a failing grade when it comes to safety. Within a quarter mile of this school, 27 people were severely injured and 5 people died in crashes between 2007 and 2013. And despite the progress that we've made reducing traffic fatalities over the past 5 years, which have been the safest 5 years in New York City history, speeding continues to be the #1 killer on the streets of New York. And speeding was a contributing factor in 30% of the fatal crashes in 2012. There is a reason New York City's speed limit is 30 miles an hour. Going even 10 miles over the speed limit is the difference between life and death. And today, we're announcing that by the first day of school, we're rolling out speed cameras to bring an extra set of eyes to the road and put the brake on speeding near schools with histories of excessive speeding and crashes. A few months ago, we released a map of 100 schools where 3 out of 4 cars were speeding, and there is simply no place for that activity on our roads. Thanks to the new state legislation and the leadership of Jeff Klein and Deborah Glick, we'll fast-track safety to 20 locations near schools this year. These speed cameras are another important tool for us in our campaign for safer streets. And over the past 6 years, we've kept an unrelenting focus on improving safety on the streets. We've improved and implemented safety projects along 104 corridors at 99 intersections, reorganized 120 miles of streets, installed pedestrian countdown signals at 3,200 intersections, and we'll have 7,000 installed by the year 2015. We put in 879 speed humps and put in 198 speed zones near 156 schools. It's a testament to this mayor that these kinds of policies are already saving lives and why New York is now a model for public health and safety around the world. If we sustained the same rate of death from 10 years ago, 1,000 New Yorkers would have died on our streets over the last 10 years. This administration's determined focus on the safety of all New Yorkers, particularly the most vulnerable, has brought us to this point. And when classes start in another couple of weeks, we'll have an even sharper focus on safety near our schools. So thank you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Jeanette, thank you. I think it's fair to say we would not be where we are today in keeping our city safe without the work of outstanding NYPD leaders like Chief of Transportation Bureau James Teller, and I'd like to invite him to share a few words. Chief?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and good morning. The message is simple. Slower is safer, especially around school children. The speed cameras that will be in place next month can only support the work of the NYPD, school crossing guards, traffic enforcement agents, who together with police officers enhance traffic safety. Year to date, the NYPD has issued nearly 50,000 tickets for speeding citywide, more than 81,000 summonses for cell phone violations. Working closely with the Department of Transportation, we've reduced the number of injuries caused by traffic collisions in New York City. And early this year, we expanded the number of highly trained detectives dedicated to investigating traffic collisions. As the mayor said, reducing speed increases the chance of survival. We want to deter unsafe speed and prevent injuries or worse. Last month, at least 270 traffic collisions involved a speeding driver. We want to do everything we can to bring that number even further down. The cameras being announced today will help achieve that. Thank you very much.
Chief, thank you. Our push for speed cameras has had the active backing of key transportation safety groups, including Transportation Alternatives and the Tri-State Transportation Campaign. And both groups have been pushing for speed cameras for many years. They've also been big supporters of all our administration's efforts to make city streets safer for everyone. And I did want to thank Transportation Alternatives General Counsel Juan Martinez and the Executive Director of the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, Veronica Vanterpool, for their partnership. Let me just summarize for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. A partir de nuevo de septiembre, cuando regresen los niños a clases, habrán cámaras de registro de velocidad cerca de 20 escuelas. Las cámaras estarán en áreas con altos problemas de accidentes para proteger a nuestros estudiantes y hacer nuestras calles más seguras. And with that, we'll be happy